Hello and welcome to episode 64 of Dots, Lines, and Destinations. It's October 9th, 2014. In this episode, we talk about changes in passports, changes in attitudes, and changes in point redemptions. I'm joined by Seth Miller and Faz Mahmood. How you guys doing?
Great.
Pretty well.
Yeah, it's been a couple of weeks. Time is going by faster between these shows for me. I don't know about you guys, but it's like, I guess it's because I'm in New York for a week and I come home and we record the show, so it kind of jumps. It's fun. I like it. Maybe we should start doing weekly. I don't know. We have the time.
Well, then the time would go even faster between them.
Yeah, exactly. I like talking to you guys.
I'm a little worried our listeners don't like. I'm a little worried our listeners don't like listening to us that much, but I guess we'd find out soon enough, right?
Oh man. So, 2016, I was reading a post on Rapid Travel Chai. I saw it on Twitter about 2016 and passports, and they're getting a new design, and there will be no adding of pages after you receive the passport. So, kind of like Seth, I'm sure you do. I did it. When you run out of pages, you send the passport in, you pay a fee, and you get a chunk of pages poorly added to your passport and sent back to you. And that's going away. So, if you want more pages, get them before 2016. But it's interesting.
Are they going to stop adding pages to existing passports, or is it just the new passports won't be allowed to get them?
Just the new passports won't be allowed to get more pages. You can still get the 52-page book when you buy the passport. Or when you get the passport, but
you're buying it, you pay a lot of money for it.
Yeah, but you're not going to be able to add pages after the fact. So we would recommend everyone get the 52-page book, simply because you never know when you're going to need more pages, and some countries require a certain number of pages to enter them or to get a visa. So it makes no sense. There's no added cost, right?
Yeah, at the same price point, you should definitely get the extra pages. And even if you're getting extra pages, there's an option to get two sets instead of just one. So you get 48 new pages instead of just 24. Mm-hmm. The first time I did it, I didn't know that. The second time, I absolutely did. We were talking about this a little bit before the show started. My passport's actually due for renewal in early 2016. And interestingly, I actually renewed it early in 2006 because I didn't want the RFID chip in it.
Yep.
And now I'm going to renew early in late 2015 so that I can get it with the ability to still add more pages just in case.
Yep. And this is just a checkbox to do when you get the initial passport with more pages added already. That's just a checkbox on the form, right? It's right. Something simple.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason not to do it.
Yeah. I will say, though, the second set of extra pages have filled more slowly than the first for me.
And that's because of?
Generally, it's a global entry, I think, makes a huge difference. Yeah. I don't get stamped coming back into the U.S. anymore. And, my experience is certainly not complete, but it has been very much an East Coast, West Coast thing. If I come in on the East Coast, I usually get stamped, or I used to get stamped. Coming on the West Coast, they never bothered.
Yeah.
And so I always come home on the East Coast, of course, because that's where I live. And so I was getting a lot of U.S. stamps in my passport, and they started to fill it up much more quickly than the foreign stamps.
Yeah, I had some interesting experiences with that. On the East Coast, it depended kind of on the airport that I came into. And some airports, I think maybe it was Charlotte I came in, and they stamped my immigration form. And that's something that they always did in Houston. They didn't stamp the passport. They just stamped the customs form that you hand to the customs guy when you're walking out. Which I never really understood why I need it. Is it just to prove that I talked to an immigration officer?
I think probably to show that you didn't somehow skip that line, because the first guy is the one that decides if you get sent to secondary.
Yeah.
Or both of them can decide, but the first guy has that option.
So that's probably why. But then coming into like Newark, I got stamped every time in the passport.
Yep.
And it would be, they would go to like a blank page and stamp in the middle. It's like, if you're going to stamp it, just stamp it on a page that already has some stuff already on it, because you're just wasting pages. So
well, the mafia owns the ink company for the stamps.
The ink pads.
Wouldn't surprise me. Actually, it turns out they don't have to stamp you. And coming into Orlando one time before I got my sort of second batch of new pages, I was starting to fill up again and knew I had a couple trips coming up and asked them not to stamp me. And the agent was so confused and didn't know what to do.
Do they think that people want the stamp?
I used to, so maybe that's it. But he was like, what do you mean? I said, I know you don't have to stamp it. My passport is filling up quickly. I have a couple trips coming up where I'm going to need to get visas. If you wouldn't mind not stamping it, I would really appreciate it. And he says, okay, hold on a second. And he takes my passport with me and he walks over to the supervisor. And, in theory, I can't hear the conversation because they're standing all of 6 feet away from me. And he's like, basically this crazy guy doesn't want me to stamp his passport. What's up with that? And the supervisor says, well, he's right. You don't have to. There's no need to, but ask him some questions. If it seems legit, you can just wave him through without stamping it. And I hear this, and he finally comes, sort of walking back over. And I'm like, okay. And he looks at me and he starts looking through my passport, like looking at all the stamps that are already there. He looks at one, he's like, okay, tell me about this trip you took to Tokyo. And I'm like, okay, can you show me the stamp? He says, no. You have to be able to tell me about where you've been and what you're doing. And I said, right. I need you to show me the stamp you're talking about for Tokyo.
I don't know the dates.
well, here's the problem. I actually had 2 stamps for Tokyo in my passport. I'd been twice on that passport book.
Yeah.
And so depending on which stamp he was talking about, one was a mileage run where I was in downtown. I went to the fish market and did all those sorts of crazy things. The other was my honeymoon, where we went to Narita, had sushi, and left 6 hours later.
Yeah.
Or 8 hours later, whatever. So, and he was like, he sort of got like, aha, I've caught him. He doesn't know what's going on. And I finally explained to him, like, there are 2 Tokyo stamps in there, Japan stamps in there. If you don't tell me which one, there's a good chance I'm going to get the story wrong, and I'd really rather not lie to you. He was pretty upset at that point.
Yeah,
sent me to secondary anyways, but he didn't stamp my passport.
You knew it was coming, right?
Yes. And when I asked the agent about it, the agent in secondary sort of like saw me coming. And was like, why did you get sent first? And he sent me to agriculture inspection.
Oh, gosh.
And I'm like, she's like, why did you put the big A on here? I'm like, because I asked him not to stamp my passport. And she looked at me a little funny. She's like, what? I'm like, it was 2 a.m. It was the Copa flight from Panama that gets in really late. And I was like, I really don't know. He seemed to be unhappy. I'm just trying to go to bed. And she gave me a very perfunctory search and waved me through.
Well, at least she was cool about it.
Yeah, she was completely cool about it, actually. It was very funny. But, like, the whole, haha, I'm going to catch him on, like, not knowing about his trip. And I'm like, no, I know my passport pretty well, thanks. Was a fun moment for me.
Yeah, he clearly didn't flip through all the pages.
No. And, I mean, it was the first passport. It is the first Japan stamp. The second one is, further on in the book, so.
Yeah, and so they're actually getting a redesign of these passports, too. I mean, they haven't really said what they're going to do with them, but they're going to make them of polycarbonate? Is this to make them, you think, less destructible?
It's probably harder to forge.
Yeah. I was just thinking maybe something, how some of the European passports have like a very thick, it's almost like a book, so the pages are smaller than the actual covers, so that it protects the pages a little more. That would be okay. I'd be okay with that. Something that lasts longer would be nice. I mean, I don't see that as a bad thing. So, and then I didn't know this, but a note in this post actually was about having a second passport, and that the Mrs. Sprague, who is she? She is a person that works for the government. I mean, I don't really know what she does. This post doesn't say what she actually does. But Deputy Assistant to the Secretary for Passport Services, excuse me. She said that there is a possibility that the second passports will have a validity longer than 2 years, but there's nothing public about that. So I didn't even realize you could have a second passport. I thought you had to kind of air quote lose one and have another one sent to you.
You can get a second passport if you're going to, say,
Saudi.
Saudi is one, or Israel if you have a Muslim stamp on it, or when you need to send one out for visas or stuff, you can get, but the secondary passports are only good for 2 years.
Gotcha. So she's saying that it's possible that might get have a longer life on those second passports. That's good to know, though. I had no idea. So do you have to prove that you're traveling somewhere and need the second passport?
I don't know. I think there's just an application you can request it. I know people who have both and they use the second one to go out for visas.
Mm-hmm.
So, because you can get a 5 or 10 year visa on a 2-year passport, but you'll still be able to use the visa.
Yeah, you just carry both with you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or have it transferred over. So there are options, but I've seen that.
Very cool. Yeah, I think that that's neat. So anyway, just keep up with it and watch.
It's neat, except for the part where I'm gonna have to get more passports. Although to be fair, the United States is one of, if not the only country where you can get additional pages added instead of needing to get a new passport.
Yeah, and that's one of the points that's made in the post is, we're one of the few, and the reason a lot of countries stopped doing it was because the United States stopped allowing people to enter with additional pages added. It's funny how that reciprocity thing works. So,
wait, are we blaming this on the Argentinian fiscal crisis?
Just because Rolo is not here, we're not going to knock on Argentina.
Well, you said reciprocity. They're the poster child for reciprocity.
Oh, man.
They're subtle enough not to even call it a visa.
Yeah.
They actually just call it a reciprocity fee.
Yeah, they just flat out say it. So, Foz, when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about on the show, you sent out 2 notes, and one of them was, why do all the bloggers hate on United so much? So let's just throw that out there and let you guys chew on it. You like that ARG thing today.
That was really more of a dog rather than a pirate, but I could go ARG for a pirate.
We're going to need to work on your impressions, I think, your voices. I mean, I'm not good at them, but I know at least enough to try.
Well, I am a little under the weather, so I'm sure I'm not on my A game.
Should we get like a little soundboard and have, pirate sounds and things like that? We could probably do that. So what do you guys think? I mean, Seth, Foz, I'll let you guys answer it. I mean, you posed the question, Foz, so.
Yeah, I mean, it's just funny. Like, every time there's anything about United, the entire blogosphere lights up about how bad it is. And, like, this week was, what did United announce? A new CIO or a CTO or something?
CIO,
yeah. And they, it was the same thing. Everyone has their, armchair CEO comments on how bad it is. But I gotta tell you, like, having dealt with both Delta and American over the last few years, it's really not that bad. And I just don't get it. Like, does United have space to improve? Yes. Were they horrible after the merger? Absolutely. But at least in my experience, they've gotten much better. They are still getting better, but are they there? No. But hell, I had an experience with American last night, which just pushed me over the edge. And I don't understand how people deal with them and say they're so great.
I think it's who you fly majority of the time. For me, I fly United almost exclusively. And the experience this year has been up and down. I mean, there's been some really great flights and just experiences overall. And then there's been some just horrific delays, cancellations, no help at all to get me to where I need to go. And so for me, it's a mixed bag. I don't hate United. I don't find a compelling reason to fly them solely anymore, though.
Yeah, but I think that's completely reasonable.
Yeah.
And you should always have options, but I guess the counterpoint I would have is, have you flown anyone else enough to have a real gauge on what it's like flying with them?
No, I mean, when I lived in Texas, before I took the most recent job, I flew American almost exclusively. Back before American was cool to fly. And Dallas DFW people didn't really want to connect there because it was not that great of an airport. And it still isn't a great airport. It's big. And I had okay experiences with American. Very nice people, very helpful people on the phone and at the airport. But the in-flight was nothing extraordinary or amazing that made me want to fly them all the time. So
to be fair, the in-flight has changed significantly since, I don't even know how long ago you're talking. But
that was like 2006. So yeah, I'm sure it's changed a lot. I mean, so I don't know. I think I don't know what to say, Foz. I'm going to start flying Alaskan a lot more, probably being in the Northwest. But to me, the United's flaws really are the new mileage announcements. The redemption changes and the earning changes are huge. But they're just in step with Delta, so I can't really judge. I can't say, they're so bad, because there's another carrier doing the exact same thing. And other carriers do something very similar, which is JetBlue, Southwest, all have a point system based on cash spent.
Yep.
Are we talking about how much you like the points earning, or are we talking about how much you like flying the airline? Because those are two really different things for me.
But I think they merge together a little bit, right? I mean, if it's
in the end, yes. In the end, right? In the end, the decision comes together, right? It doesn't matter how good the points are if the program sucks. It doesn't matter how bad the points are if the airline sucks.
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean? Or if the airline's great, whichever way that's supposed to line up. I fly this year. As expected, I'm not going to make 1K on United. I don't have to spend, among other things. Although I got closer than I thought I would have, in part because I had a couple work trips and I had a lot of credit, actually, of things that were irregular operations that I probably shouldn't have actually gotten credit for. So, looking at that gift horse in the mouth. But, I think, for me, I've flown a lot of other airlines this year. I have not only flown United. I haven't even only flown Star Alliance. We've talked about this on previous shows. When I go down to Nashville for work, I fly Southwest home because they are much more likely to get me home on the day that I'm coming home. And, I was flying mostly on Business Select or Anytime fares. I was earning actually pretty good in the point system because someone else was paying for the trip. Even at the same price point that United was, or Delta or American were charging for mid-level fare buckets.
Yep.
So, in that sense, the program was actually competitive and useful to me. I even got targeted for a triple miles program, promo they're running right now, and I'm right after I stopped flying to Nashville for the year, I think. So that sucks. But, it wasn't the flight experience, which isn't much, but it was consistent. And the part where I usually got home was more valuable to me than taking my chances on what would be an almost entirely similar experience on a CR7 with one of the other airlines. and maybe getting home.
Yeah, being delayed.
And so, I canceled. I have had 1 week where doing was canceled, but they at least could get me to my next destination where the others couldn't. So, it's, and the flip side of that is there were some people who were flying, right? You'd fly United or Partners a ton, bank all your points in Mileage Plus, and then redeem for, crazy awards in first class on Partners. Those aren't people who loved United. Those are people who loved the Mileage Plus program.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I still think, despite its recent evaluations, the Mileage Plus program of the big three is the most valuable and the most flexible for, at least for my style of travel. And a lot of that is more partners to more places.
Yep.
If I only wanted first class and I only mostly went to Asia, Cathay does decently enough in award inventory. Although we were talking about this earlier, it's usually last minute, that having American points to redeem there isn't so bad. Right, that's not a bad thing to do, but that's not my travel pattern. If I want to go to random places in Europe, until very recently, that meant flying BA with higher fuel surcharges. Now there's also Air Berlin and Nikkei and a couple other options, which I actually get to fly Nikkei next week. I'm excited. But there's things like that going on. So, but for a lot of Europe and a lot of places, and a lot other than South America, where One World is hugely, dominating, the opportunities are limited. So for me, it was having access to the most different destinations and then a pretty decent award chart and reasonable earning rules. Now, obviously, we're talking about revenue-based earning. That's going to change things. Yeah,
and so I think, to talk about the program side of things, it's interesting to me that United and on some of the redemption side of things, on their new earning chart, they talk about how you can burn the miles on different things, and one of them is like an economy plus subscription and different ways, right? That aren't trips. They're not flights on Partners or on United. And I see this as this move, right? They're just trying to clear the balance sheet, I think, right, of a bunch of miles that are outstanding, and they see that as it's a debit. I mean, it's money that's outstanding. It's on the table, and
they don't clear them though until they get redeemed.
What's that?
Right. They don't clear until they're redeemed. This obviously, this reduces the issuance. So it reduces the outstanding balance a little bit. But they also said, depending on who you believe and how the numbers play, they're going to issue fewer, but not all that many fewer.
Yeah, and so I actually I'm in the middle of a really long post about all this, and I kind of go into more the math side of it and just look at kind of, I take, for example, I took like a San Francisco to Tokyo business class trip, and I just looked at how people would do in the system. And just, looking a month out at the lowest fare, which I think was a P fare they were selling, which is surprising. And it was something like $6,000, right? People will do very well on a new program who spend $6,000 on their trip, regardless of if they're a no status passenger or a 1K. Yeah. They'll do very, very well. Whereas maybe
that same person flying a coach is going to get screwed though.
Exactly. So, the guy buying the $1,000 ticket as a 1K is still getting screwed. Not nearly as much, but it's still there. But the guy flying coach with no status is really losing out on a bunch of miles. But I think it's interesting to me that they have the caps there, Delta and United, at 75,000 miles. It's like we love your money, but we just love it 75,000 miles worth. That's kind of what it says to me. So I don't know. So going back to the main topic of why do people hate on United, I think it's because it's easy to hate on United. United has done a lot of things wrong, and they're trying to correct some of that. I just saw an ad today. There's a Portland Narita nonstop on Delta, and there was an ad for it today, and it talked about jet lag, and it was very simple. It just said jet lag. It's like pick a different jet, and it was an ad for the lie flats on the nonstop. I think marketing is part of it. I think how you present yourself. It's all built into what people take away from what you offer. I think it's unacceptable to have in-flight entertainment on a plane with no plugs. Like have iPod or iPad entertainment on a plane and not have a way to plug in on that plane. I think that's a bad representation of your product. You're offering something really cool, and then you're kind of ticking people off at the same time. So that's kind of where I'm going. Does that make any sense? I mean, I'm kind of just rambling.
It does, but I mean, I think one of the things that I would get frustrated on is, it'd be one thing if it was valid feedback, but often it isn't. It's just like all these people have personal vendettas for some reason or another.
Like it's impossible to make a flight change in under 45 minutes.
Yeah, the business class seat. This is one of the big things that United's business class product is dated. I'm not going to doubt that, but they also had lie flat before anybody else.
That's true.
So, and this is a leapfrogging game. So yes, United's offering is behind American and Delta, but when they introduce,
it's only behind America's new offering.
Yeah,
America's been running angle flat still. I mean,
the bulk of their fleet is still angle flat because they only have like 15, not even 15, a dozen or so 777Ws.
And the first 772 is actually flying tonight we're recording this on Sunday, so it's flying tonight down to Santiago with the new flatbed 772 business reconfiguration.
With the backwards and forwards facing seats? Oh, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, and I actually had an interesting conversation the week before last with the woman from American who was involved in that design and sort of about why they built their own seat instead of licensing one and things like that. I've been sick and delayed in writing that up, but it's a good story. So,
well, so going to your point, Foz, it's interesting because people say, oh well, the lie flat's dated. Even on the pre-merger Continental side, they're like, oh, that's dated because it's 2-2 or 2-2-2 seating, and not everyone has aisle access. Okay, well, hang on a second. Both Delta and American on their transcon services, where they use a 757 or the A321, have the exact same business class seat. Exact. I mean, the difference is the colors.
Yep. Right. And the IFE system.
Yeah, and those products are amazing because why? Because of the carrier? It's the same seat. I don't understand that part of it. And that's, PS is PS. I mean, when I fly transcons, I just want I want to be rested somewhat, and I want to have a snack maybe, and I want to have frequent drink fill-ups, and that's really all I care about. I mean, the fact that my seat doesn't look brand new or have aisle access, I'm sorry, I have to inconvenience somebody to get up to go to the bathroom. I think that's ridiculous. It's a ridiculous argument.
And I agree with you. And the other part of this argument is that, yes, American and Delta have these newer seats which have direct aisle access, but they're also putting fewer of them in, which means it's harder to get upgrades.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'd rather the United product with a better chance of an upgrade than American or Delta, where upgrade, like every time I've flown American and applying my SWOs, they never pre-clear. It's always like within the last day or two that they clear.
And how often do you clear on those transcons?
The transcons, I never apply SWOs. I just did one last week where on the outbound, I never cleared. I was number 5 or 6, whereas on the 762s, I would always clear. On the return, I got a battlefield.
Wow.
So that loss of 5 seats or 6 seats, whatever the difference between the 762s and the 321s is the magic amount that's preventing the EXPs from getting upgrades now.
Yeah. Well, and that's another argument that people, they hate on United on is, oh, well, I never get an upgrade. I never get an upgrade. Well, it sounds like on American, it's kind of, it's all anecdotal, right? It's all based on your experience. And 2, it sounds like other airlines, you have just as much problems depending on the routes you fly. I mean, we all have a mutual friend who started flying Delta and is getting upgrades regularly as I think he's a platinum medallion.
Yep.
And, he even got one on like a transcon, that on a route that most people wouldn't think. I think it was Dulles to LA or something. And he got an upgrade. That's dumbfounding, but it's an anecdotal experience for him for that particular travel time.
In all those cases, what matters is your personal experience, right? That's how you make a decision of which one you want.
True.
Right. I mean, I could tell you, you could upgrade me on every Delta flight I take, regardless of the cabin I buy. But if they don't fly where I need to go as often from where I am, it doesn't matter as much to me. I'm also one of the few people in the world that says upgrades are like number 86 on the list of benefits I care about.
But I mean,
and maybe like 30, but I just can't think of 50 other things I also don't care about. Upgrades on domestic flights don't matter to me.
Yeah.
I won't turn them down generally, although I have in the past from time to time. But I mostly care about other things when I'm flying. So it really just depends on what you want.
Yeah. And it's been on United, it's been a downgrade in the rear cabin for people. I mean, it's in general, not wholesale, but especially on the Airbus fleet with the slimline seats. It's been terrible. It's not a good move. It's not comfortable. And they're flying these things on 6-hour flights. So that to me is, I mean, like you said, Seth, I mean, I don't really care about the upgrade, but it is on a seat like that, I want the upgrade because I don't want to sit in the back on that. I you know what I mean? I don't, you're putting, I mean, I think there's 95 A320s in service, something like that. There's near 100 A320s. And a lot of them they do random kind of routes. I mean, also my plane the other day did Portland to Newark to Chicago to Houston to Portland and then down to San Francisco. And then it was going to do a transcon the next day or something. I mean, that's incredible. And so that plane gets around and people sit in those seats and they go, man, my butt hurts. and they think that's the seat that United uses on all their planes. And so they may not fly them again, or they may choose, well, I'm not going to spend as much money on them, or whatever it is. So yeah, I think it's definitely personal experience that comes into play.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned upgrades, and one of the things that I've always heard is from American folks, an EXP never misses an upgrade. It's very rare. I can honestly tell you I sit in the back more on American than I do on United.
Wow. It says a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, kind of going from this topic is the Southwest side of things, and how Southwest is morphing into being no less evil than any of the other majors. And we say evil with air quotes. I mean, they're not planning domination of the world, but just how they've become they're no longer a low-cost carrier. They're just a carrier.
Didn't that happen like 5 years ago, though?
I think so, but I think that they've kind of, with the Love Field Gate situation, Foz pointed that out. I think they have become
80% isn't enough, so we want more.
Yeah, exactly. So they are kind of saying we want to dominate this market, and that's a little evil. I mean, we don't want anybody else in here. Right?
Well, I mean, that was the whole argument they made when DFW opened, was that American would be too big there. I mean, that was their biggest fight about why they wouldn't go to DFW, is that American's too big, they monopolize too much of the airport, and now in essence they're doing the same thing.
Yeah.
And I mean, the one thing I will give Southwest credit for is they are marketing geniuses, because everybody in the world believes they're cheap. And, we've seen this, I know I've seen this, you've seen this, they're often more expensive than a major, fairly consistently.
Yep.
But people will automatically believe, well, so United or Delta is too expensive, let's go to Southwest, or I need a cheap flight, I'll just go to Southwest. And they have this blind loyalty, which I wonder if that'll ever catch up with them or not. But they do an amazing job with that.
Well, I think too, part of that is the markets that they picked. Dallas, Love, Houston, Hobby, they're at Denver. I think they've built very strong bases there of people who love them. I mean, my parents, before I left college, my parents only flew Southwest, really, everywhere we went. A lot of it was intra-Texas, but some of it wasn't. And we rarely flew Continental at the time.
Well, don't forget that they've also worked very, very hard to make sure that the fare options that they present are terribly opaque to the public.
Yes.
Which is, the irony for me is that there's yet another something going on with the DOT and the airlines, where the DOT is basically saying, okay, if you guys are going to charge all of these fees, a customer needs to be able to know at the time when they see the base fare what they all are on any ticketing platform.
Yeah.
Basically trying to push the information into the GDS, and the GDS isn't ready for it yet. It's a noble goal. I sort of like the idea, but the GDS just isn't ready yet. And all of the majors, all the airlines are freaking out and saying, no, we can't do this. Mostly because the GDSs want the airlines to pay for all the development work that's going to require to make this all work. But Southwest is like, yeah, sure, that's fine, because they only ever sell direct. Yep. They already have the information basically available. And it's, Delta's comment on the situation was like, everybody knows that there's bag fees. Well, sure, but you don't tell us what they are. And they change depending on what the route is and all these other variables. But it's really interesting to me to hear Southwest saying, we want, this whole transparency is a good idea. They should definitely have to publish all this information everywhere they sell tickets, when one of the reasons they make as much as they do, or where their yields are as good as they are, is because they don't actually tell anyone they don't make it easy to compare the fares.
Yeah. I mean, I think Expedia is probably the only person that has access to it, and that's only Expedia corporate, because I think they give
most corporate sites do.
So do they sell that directly to? Is Southwest not selling it, but making it available directly to the?
Yeah, Southwest is available in most corporate booking engines. They do a huge amount of corporate business.
Yeah.
If you fly within Texas or within California a lot as a business person, and you're not doing it on Southwest, we should have words, because I think you're probably doing it wrong. But
I mean, I say the difference in Texas is that there's some places that United still flies that Southwest doesn't.
Yeah, I mean, there's all of those. But,
yeah.
And I mean, if you live on the wrong side of Houston, it could be 2 hours at either end. So,
yeah,
or same for Dallas. But there's a lot of routes. It's mainline. It's more frequent, and it's reasonably reliable. If they have to route you through another connecting city in Houston or in Texas to get you to your ultimate destination, they can do that reasonably.
Yeah. I mean,
versus just canceling and stranding you.
And that was a huge thing for me when I was in college. I lived in Lubbock, which Lubbock had a nonstop on United, or Southwest was a connection, usually without a plane change. It was actually the same plane. You just stayed on the plane, and people got on and kept going in Austin or San Antonio. And if things went wrong, I could always go through Dallas or somewhere else. I could fly up to Midland on them or wherever. And they had their way of building their little networks of routes was quite interesting and kind of helped people.
Yeah.
But I don't think they're. I won't say they're evil, Foz. I don't think they're evil. I think they're, like you said, they're very good marketers. I think they're very good at hiding some information, like Seth says, by not making it available to all the other GDSs or all the other sites on a public, in a public way. But they also, I don't know. I feel like they've kind of gone behind the scenes, and they've advocated for certain things, kind of like the Newark Gate situation, and they've advocated for themselves in a manner that says, hey, we're here to stay, we're going to offer low fares, and then that doesn't actually come true.
Well, maybe evil's not the right term, but they definitely have become what they protested the most.
Yeah.
They are becoming
Just
the
another
aggressor.
airline.
They are becoming the aggressor in markets where they now dominate.
Yeah.
So, and it's funny because that was always their platform, that they are not, they're going to be the underdog, but really they're becoming the aggressor, and this Dallas Love Field just really proves that.
Yeah.
They fly more passengers domestically than anyone else and have for several years now. They've never really been the underdog. Or not never, but certainly in recent memory have not really been an underdog.
But they portray the character of an underdog,
Sure.
whether or not
and they still do. And it's, the folksy charm and, we love y'all, come on back, whatever. But
it's a facade almost. Yeah.
It's good marketing.
I wonder too, and it'll be fun to watch, or interesting to watch. I don't know if it'll be fun. It'll be interesting to see what they do with Hobby and the international gates. A lot of people are saying, oh, this is why United killed the Auckland feed and blah, blah, blah. But just ignore that for a little while. Let's say another low-cost carrier wants to come in, Interjet, or another, Mexican or South American carrier wants to fly. It's significantly cheaper to fly to Hobby. I believe the landing fees are still significantly lower than what they are at IAH. Will Southwest allow people to use those gates? They're not building the gates. They're having the city of Houston build those gates and build the immigration and customs facilities. So who gets the say on who gets to use those gates? Because I could easily see someone like Delta, who runs these one-off services to Cancun, wanting a gate. I could easily see that.
Well, I think the big question is, what did the Houston Airport Authority agree to? Did they give them exclusive right to the gates, or did they give them primary access to the gates?
I tried to look this up, and I haven't found anything definitive. So I'll keep looking, and I'll post it if we find it. But it was never clear to me what was going to happen there. I
may have a guy I can reach out to.
Okay. I'd be interested to know. If Houston told them you get exclusive rights, then that's fine. But are they going to protest if another carrier comes in and says, we want to fly here? Yeah. It's kind of like this, what's going on with American and Delta with the Seattle Haneda route, right? This is just a mess. Delta says we're going to...
Is this American now wants back?
Yes. So Delta says we're only going to fly Seattle Haneda seasonally. American says, well, that's not a proper use of the route. They're
according
clearly,
to the rules is accurate.
Yes. So they're clearly not using it the way they should. So we should get rights to that route. And we want to be able to fly, I think they said they want to fly San Francisco or LA to Haneda.
LA to Haneda.
Yeah, LA. And it's like, well, wait a second.
Competing with ANA, who already flies that route.
Exactly.
Sure.
And
also
they had
JFK.
exclusive access to JFK Haneda, and they didn't make that survive. I really believe that there should be fines if you abandon a route at this point with what's going on with these Haneda routes.
Well, except the part where, yes, there's a limited resource and whatever, and there's scarcity, and if you take it away from someone else, but the frequency with which everyone else is having trouble making these specific routes work, it's almost like, yeah, but if everybody's losing money on it, should you really be penalized for deciding that you've also now lost some more money?
Do you think...
Let's take American, for example, and I think Delta as well. They both put 777s on those routes before they moved to Seattle. They're just not the right size plane.
Yeah, that's what United is going to put on San Francisco Haneda. It's a 777.
But United arguably probably has more O&D business
on
both sides than
and better feed in San Francisco than the others right now. But what would you put a 7.6 on there? Would a 7.6 have made the JFK Haneda route?
Yeah,
no.
Nope.
So American didn't have another. What else could American have used? A 7.8. Well, that didn't exist yet.
Right. They didn't have the plane for it, but the problem was, 20 empty seats can make or break a route.
Sure. And let's, the reality is, I'd say, there's the only other time I can remember an airline who decided not to run a route because they didn't have the right plane for it was the Philly China routes, and you know who made that decision?
Mr. Parker. Yeah. I was going to say.
I don't necessarily like all his moves from a loyalty perspective, especially, but the man ran U.S. Airways and kept it in business probably well longer than it ever should have. So he knows a little something about the system.
Does JAL run any Haneda flights out of the U.S.?
I think San Francisco.
Okay. The reason I was wondering is I know ANA only runs L.A. and Vancouver. They run those two to Haneda. I don't know of any other Haneda flights. It seems to me like it's just everyone has been conditioned to fly to Narita, and
that's also because the slot times suck.
Oh yeah, I mean they suck, but
except for O&D market, and the O&D market isn't quite as big.
Yeah, but then you look at the European flights. Lufthansa's flying. They don't even fly to Narita anymore, or they're going to stop soon.
And what they have now is a tag flight from Kix Osaka, right?
Yeah, it's a tag on, and it's a 748, and they're dropping the tag. And then I think they fly one from Munich to Haneda now on an A346. And most of ANA's flights, they fly Frankfurt Haneda. I think they actually still have the Munich Narita flight, but I'm not 100% on that. So a lot of people are starting to go into Haneda, and the timing for European flights is much better than it is for U.S. bound flights.
Yeah,
I think just because of the way because of the globe.
Yeah. JAL does fly San Francisco Haneda.
Okay. So that's competition for UA, which will be interesting to watch. Anyway.
The thing, United's putting a 777 on it today, but they can very easily put a 78 on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what JAL has.
Yeah. And United has a lot of O&D traffic on both sides, which works to their favor. Delta, Seattle's relatively new, so there's not a lot of O&D market. That's predefined. If they did like San Francisco, they did Detroit, and what was the other one?
I don't know.
LA?
Was it LA? And LA is a weird market for Delta. For Delta, LA is weird because they've made it a hub, they've dehubbed it. They've made it a hub, they've dehubbed it, and now they're making it a hub again.
Yep.
So there's just no loyalty there because no one ever, in the LA basin, people don't really trust whether or not they'll be around in 5 years as a hub.
Yeah. Speaking of Delta, Delta's cutting back on how many MR points, membership rewards points, you can transfer in a year with American Express. I don't know a ton about this. Seth, you wrote a post. I'll let you take it away.
Yeah, basically what it comes down to is today you can transfer 999,000 points every day from membership rewards into Sky Miles, assuming you've accrued that many membership reward points, of course. But starting soon, next year maybe, Delta is changing overall the inbound transfer rules, and they're setting a limit of 250,000 points inbound to an account annually, and that includes membership rewards.
That's kind of crappy, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's kind of interesting, right? This is the culmination of biting the hand that feeds you, because American Express was one of the biggest financial backers of Delta's exit from bankruptcy.
Sure, but they still also have a huge co-brand agreement where you can get a Sky Miles card and earn as many points as you want.
Yep.
It is a little bit biting the hand that feeds you. I'll give you that, but a whole lot of it to me is also still just trying to force people into only earning Sky Miles, not earning membership rewards points. Delta wants more control. And they've been doing this in a lot of ways. They want to control which partners they're using, where the points are coming from, how you're getting them.
So if you earn Sky Miles by flying, the membership rewards piece comes in where on that?
Well, it's if you have
an Amex card.
If you have a non-branded Amex card, so a regular charge card or one of the other cards.
Okay.
Where that tied up
Amex Platinum, Amex Gold, basically.
Gotcha. Okay.
Centurion.
Classic Green.
No, I guess they do still issue those, don't they?
Yes, they do.
Such a bad deal. Why would you pay 70? It's like 75 instead of 95 for the gold card, right?
Anyway,
I was going to talk about this reward search tool, Seth. You wrote. Do you want to mention this on the show?
Sure. Hopefully by the time the show goes live, it'll be a little more stable. It's very much in beta right now, but I've been toying with hotel award bookings and research and such, and basically have come up with a system to aggregate city by city search for hotel nights that are available. And it's got 4 chains in the system right now, working on adding a couple more. It's Wyndham, Starwood, Intercontinental, and Marriott are the current ones that are available. And basically put in a city, and it's sit by airports now, though. And I know some people have a problem with that. The way I figure it, if there's not a hotel near the airport, if there's not an airport near the city you're going to, then you're going to the wrong place. So how are you going to get there? I mean, when you're driving?
Train.
Weird.
Bus.
Now you're just crazy talk. But no, the idea is, you put in the airport and it searches basically the equivalent of doing that airport search on all of these sites and then consolidates the data down into, for most of them, a map plus a table that has all the rates and how many points it is and how much cash it costs. And so you can do sort of cents per point. You can compare rates. Some interesting opportunities there. I had a lot of fun building it, which is usually why I do that sort of thing. But this is one where I think there's actually some value too.
Yeah, it's really cool. I mean, it's a great way to just look up real quick and see what the rate is for your stay, and if you wanted to pay points, what it would be per night, and kind of what the value is on that. And I've already kind of used it. I know we're going to Seoul in November.
Yep.
So I'm just going to probably use it for that as well, just to see what my options are. And we appreciate you building the tool. I mean, it's going to help us.
Yeah, we'll see how long it takes for this one to get shut down.
So, speaking of that, we should ask our listeners if they have any suggestions. I think Foz will be in Seoul before us, and Seth and I will be in Seoul in late November. So if you have any recommendations or things we should see or places we should go eat, we're all about the food. So definitely send them, either leave a comment.
Sketchier the better.
The sketchier the better. The more street meat, the better. Just send us a comment or an email or tweet us. We'd like to hear from you. So, Foz, with that, you want to give us your rant for the week?
My rant. It's an interesting lesson I learned with American yesterday. So with United, I'm always used to when you have a ticket that you reuse, they reissue the ticket and your ticket becomes 1 year valid from the time that it was reissued. Apparently with American, that's not the case. So I had a ticket that was for travel 2 weeks ago that I bought in April, incidentally, and I went to reuse it last night, and the woman's like, well, you have to fly tonight to use this. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, this ticket expires today. You can't even issue it for something in the future. You have to fly by the expiry of the ticket.
If you bought it in April, how's it expiring today?
That's the thing that I don't understand. They couldn't tell me, but they think that there was a previous ticket that was applied. And
I honestly, you've been playing games again, huh?
Yeah, maybe. Possibly. I mean, I had some expiring tickets. I guess we must have applied one. But I don't actually remember. When I look back through all my records in my emails, there's nothing that reflects an earlier ticket, but they couldn't give me any details. So, I mean, and it was the ticket in question was a $1,700 ticket. So there's a fair bit of value that I don't want it to roll off. And they're like, well, there's nothing we can do. You can call customer care on Monday and see what they can do for you. I'm like, well, that's a bit of a crapshoot because they could always just say no in your SOL. So I started doing some searches, and I'm like, well, let's see. There's a LA to Vegas flight at 10 p.m. Pacific, and this is about midnight Eastern, so it's 9 p.m. Pacific. I'm like, I could get that one booked, and it's a $200 ticket, so I lose $200 out of the deal because they will still issue the residual voucher, which is good for another year. So I'm like, well, it's better than risking $1,600. So I ended up buying a walk-up LA Vegas ticket last night. Woman processed it. By the time it issued, it was like 40 minutes before departure time. So, and I let it lapse, so I figure I'll fight with them for the $200, but that's far easier than fighting with them for the whole amount. But it was really just caught me off guard, and I just don't understand why people think American's so great. I mean, I keep running into these little problems with them where they are probably one of the most unfriendly airlines I've ever dealt with.
And it sounds like it's just not documented well as to why the ticket expires right then and why it was issued in April, or why it has this date of April.
Yeah, she said the ticket system says October 4th. She's like, there's no other information. She's like, I see the reservation was made in April. I'm like, this makes no sense.
So shouldn't it be good until April of next year? But that's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And the way the rules are written, if I remember correctly, there's a split between basically if you've started travel or not and how that affects the travel by date. Like if you have a ticket and you reissue it and you haven't started travel yet, you get a bigger window.
Okay.
Somehow, I think you're actually supposed to get a year from the originally scheduled date of travel, not the year from when it was originally issued. But if you started travel, you only get a year from when it was originally issued, kind of thing. It's something like that. I don't remember, so don't quote me on this, but there's just a weird quirk like that.
Travel. I never took any travel against this ticket, and like I said,
Yeah.
it was booked, this reservation was booked in April, which I canceled literally 2 weeks ago. And when I canceled it 2 weeks ago, the woman's like, "Oh, you have a year from April to use the ticket." I'm like, "Perfect." So I didn't even think twice about it. Otherwise, had I known 2 weeks ago, I would have done something sooner.
I mean, you think about it. Had you not called, the ticket would have lapsed, right? I mean, theoretically.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you would have really been screwed.
Yes.
So I guess, yeah. I mean, anyway, I have a question for that offline, but anyway. Let's go around the table and tell everybody where they can find us. Foz?
I'm on upgrd.com/Foz or on Twitter as FozM.
And Seth?
And I'm Seth Miller, also known as the Wandering Airman. wandr.me.
And you got the new tool, the hotel award rate comparison tool there. So give that a little plug.
Although, we'll see if there's actually a link to it. I'm good at building tools and really bad about documentation and making them available and publicizing them. So.
And I'm Steven Seagraves. You can find me on Twitter at @SSeagraves. I write occasionally at badice.com. You can follow the Dots, Lines, and Destinations podcast at DotsLines on Twitter, and moredotsmorelines.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll talk to you next time.
Is that your dog?
Yeah.
Take care.
Sorry.
Bye.
So we've moved up from the bus.
See you guys.
See ya.
Bye.
Do you have any U.S. air miles?
U.S. No. Why would I have those?
Because they give them away.
Foz, I essentially have United Miles and Starwood points. That's really all I have. That's it.
Can I send you a link to the Barclays arrival card?
Do you get a referral bonus?
No, I do not.
Can you speak with an Argentinian accent?
No, but I can say "arg" at the end of it like a pirate.
Which has what to do with anything?
Absolutely nothing.